Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. 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 Hare Krishna. Read a little something from Ramayana. This is a condensed version. It's actually very, very long Ramayana. This is captures the main activities, the main pastimes. It's easy to read. And it's chapter 2, Sage Vishwamrita. So chapter 1 was setting the scene for the appearance of the incarnation of the Lord Ramachandra. This was eons and eons, yugas ago. It's a very, very long time ago this particular incarnation appeared. And has been worshipped, heard about, sung about, prayed to, meditated on, surrendered to, engaged in service to, for many, 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 many years. Very old, early on in human history. So at the time there was a demon, his name was Ravana, and he had managed to get some benedictions from Lord Brahma. Something like Hiranyakashipu. He wouldn't be killed by Yaksha, he wouldn't be killed by a demigod, he got all the things he wouldn't be killed by. And then he thought, okay, nothing can stop me. I'm never going to be killed. But out of his arrogance, he forgot to get the benediction that he wouldn't be killed by a human being. Please, a human being. So the demigods, they're frantic because he's trying to take over being the king of the heavenly planets. He's a demon and he wants to occupy the throne of Indra. And they're frantic and they can't stop him. So they've gone to Lord Brahma and said, look, you gave him the boon, do something. So right around this time, King Dasarath, the very pious king, his kingdom was flourishing, but he had one problem: he had no son. He had 3 queens, and none of them seemed to be able to conceive a child. So for the king, how's he going to pass the kingdom to? So the two things coincided, and the demigods were able to give him a magic elixir that if his queens drank it, they would be able to conceive a child. So that's what happened. So we're on chapter 2. So with the magic elixir, King Dasarath asked Kausalya to drink a half, and he gave half of what remained to Sumitra, and half of what was then drunk by Kaikeya, and then what was left was given to Sumitra again. So Kaikeyi, she's going to be a problem later on, we'll see. She got the least amount of the potent elixir. She got the least amount. She's going to be a problem later. But for now, the wives were happy, and in due course, all of them were expectant mothers. See, chapter 2, Sage Vishwamrita. In course of time, Dasarath's sons were born. Rama of Kaushalya, she got the most of the liquid. Bharata from Kaikeyi, she got the least amount. And Sumitra gave birth to twins, Lakshman and Satrugna. She had taken the divine, they called it payasam, the elixir. She drank it twice. She had twins. In the proportion to the quantity of payasam drunk by the respective mothers, the sons are traditionally considered to be parts of Vishnu. Rama was thus half Vishnu. But such calculations have no meaning, as it is impossible to measure the infinite arithmetically, using arithmetic. Shruti tells us that even a fraction of the Supreme Being is whole and complete by itself. All right. The compiler of this has tried to comment. Hare Krishna. Yeah, even a fraction of the Supreme Being is the Supreme Being, but he may be specifically have specific characteristics that Vishnu only gives certain characteristics to that particular, like Balaram. He's Krishna himself, but in a certain aspect. He acts as a servant of Krishna. He is Krishna, but he acts as a servant of Krishna. So in that sense, it's not all one. There's differences. So he's tried to comment here, but we're not sure about his comments. So we'll just let it go. He quotes the Ishopanishad here. He says, Om Purnam Adaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnasya Vishishyate. Yes, but there are distinctions also according to the activities of the personality of Godhead. So I don't know if he's trying to comment here. He makes another comment. He says, what is whole is whole. What has come out of the whole is also complete. When the complete is taken out of the complete still remains the same. But, like when Krishna expands, they have, the expansions are, they're Krishna, but they're not exactly all the same. This is described, Rupa Goswami describes this in Upadeshamrita, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar Devotion, summary study by Prabhupada, that Vishnu has all the potencies, but he doesn't have the same pastimes as Krishna. So there's a difference. Vishnu is Krishna, but he doesn't act like Krishna. He acts like Vishnu. But they're both Krishna, and they're both Vishnu. So these are some subtleties that can be found in the Vaishnav understanding that may escape others. Okay, enough of the comments. Back to the pastimes. Dasarath's 4 sons were given all the training prescribed for princes. Ram and Lakshman were specially devoted to each other, and so were Bharata and Shatrughna. We can imagine that this special attachment, oh no, here he goes, arose out of the way the divine, he's trying to understand this, I wish he wouldn't do this. I'm going to skip it. Okay. One day, as the king was contemplating his son's matrimony, ushers rushed in to announce that the great sage Vishwamrita had arrived to see him. Vishwamrita was held in awe by all the most powerful among rishis. Vishwamrita's arrival at Ayodhya was unexpected, and King Dasarath stepped down from his throne and advanced a few paces respectfully to receive the sage. Vishwamrita was a king who attained sainthood through terrible austerities. He had long ago exhibited his spiritual powers by starting to create another Brahma and a rival universe. Go Vishwamrita. He is a king who attained sainthood by austerities and exhibited his spiritual powers by starting to create another Brahma and a rival universe. Oh boy. He had gone as far as the creation of new constellations, but was prevailed upon to stop the entreaties by the alarmed demigods. The demigods have to kind of police. Not only do they manage the rain, the water, and everything like that, the air, the fire, all the utilities, but they have to kind of police the universe too, because these upstarts appear, and Hiranyakashipu is an upstart, and this Ravana is an upstart. Now it looks like Vishwamrita was causing a problem. Vishwamrita, while he was king, once went out with his army and chanced to visit Vashishtha's ashram. The rishi cordially welcomed his royal guest and his huge entourage and extended to them all hospitality, so sumptuous that the king wondered where all the rich abundance came from in a forest hermitage. Questioned by him, Vashishtha called his cow Sabala and explained she was the fountain of unfailing plenty. Expressing gratitude to the sage, King Vishwamrita said, "You must give me this cow, and she would be more useful with me than with you. Such things of power and wealth by right belong to the king." Now, Vashishtha could not part with the divine cow. He gave many reasons and asked the king not to press his request. But the more unwilling Vashishtha was to give the cow, the more eager the king became to possess her. Wow, you extend all hospitality to someone and then they want to bite the hand that fed them. He wanted to take away this opulence that the sage had. Failing in his efforts to tempt or persuade the sage to part with the cow, Vishwamrita became angry and ordered his men to seize the cow by force. Sabala, the cow, could not understand why she was being roughly handled, and she was unwilling to go away with the sage and go away from the sage and his ashram. Shedding tears, she wondered how she had offended Vashishtha, that he should stand by and look on while she was being dragged away. The cow easily put to flight the soldiers and sought refuge at the feet of the sage. Moved by the pious appeal of his beloved cow, who was like a younger sister to him, the sage said to the cow, she's a magic cow, Bring forth soldiers to resist Vishwamrita's men. Sabala instantaneously did so, and the aggressors were soon worsted. Funny English here. Defeated. Wild with rage, Vishwamrita got into his chariot and, taking up his bow, and rained arrows on the soldiers brought forth by the cow. But their strength was inexhaustible, and the royal forces suffered under defeat. Utter defeat. Sons of Vishwamrita now chose Vashishta himself as their target, only to be reduced to ashes. Defeated and disgraced, Vishwamrita then and there entrusted his kingdom to one of his sons and proceeded to the Himalayas to perform tapas, directing his devotion to Lord Shiva to gain power with which to subdue Vashishta. So firm and steadfast was Vishwamrita in his austerities that Lord Shiva was pleased and appeared before him. He asked the king what his object was in performing tapas. Vishwamrita replied, "If you, Umapati," I guess that's another name for Lord Shiva, Umapati, "are satisfied with my tapas, then let me be blessed with divine arrows and be master of every weapon." "So be it," said Shiva, and gave Vishwamrita all the weapons available to devas, gandharvas, rishis, yakshas, and demons. Swelling with pride like the ocean, Vishwamrita considered Vashishta as already vanquished. He straightway made for the abode of the sage. Frightened at the fearful sight of the onrushing Vishwamrita, Vashishta's disciples and the animals in his ashram ran helter-skelter. Hit by the fire weapon of Vishwamrita, Vashishta's ashram was reduced to cinders. Vashishta regretted the turn of events, but determined to end the haughtiness of the erstwhile king, he faced him calmly with his Brahma Danda, holy staff, in his hand. Mad with rage, Vishwamrita shot at him all the divine weapons he had acquired, but they were quenched as they approached the rishi's staff and were absorbed by it. Vishwamrita had but one more weapon in his armor, and that was the most powerful of all, the Brahmastra. As he hurled it against Vashishta, the world became wrapped in gloom, as in some huge eclipse, and the very immortals trembled with fear. But the terrible Astra itself was merged in the rishi's staff, making both it and the holy men glow with the glory they had absorbed. Vishwamrita stood dazed. Openly accepting defeat, he said, "Of what use is a Kshatriya's might in arms? With but a staff in his hand, this Vashishta has nullified all my weapons. Lord Shiva has indeed fooled me. There is no alternative for me but to become a Brahmin Rishi, like Vashishta." So saying, he withdrew from the field of battle and proceeded south for more rigorous tapas. Bhaktisiddhanta, in his article Brahmana and Vaishnava, mentions Vashishta as an example of someone not born in a Brahmin family, but by qualities becoming a Brahmin, to defeat the rigid idea that it's only by birth. For years and years, Vishwamrita went through terrible austerities. Pleased with his perseverance, Brahma presented himself before him, advising Vishwamrita that as a result of his tapas, he had risen to the position of a rishi among kings. Brahma vanished from the scene. Vishwamrita was disappointed that all his penance could get him only the status of Rajarishi, in other words, a saintly king. Not content with anything but the rank of a Brahmarishi, he subjected himself to still more rigorous austerities in order that he might be acknowledged as equal of Vashishta. There's a lot of this that goes on in the Mahabharata also. Someone is insulted or offended or defeated by someone else, and they will not stop until they get, it's kind of like revenge. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So that's what went on with Vashishta and Vishwamrita. What is it? If you can't beat them, join them. Krishna. Okay, so that was chapter 2. Krishna. Haribol.